Thank you so much for having me, James. My name is Attorney Cynthia Hawes. I practice in the state of Georgia. I have been barred under the state bar of Georgia for 7 years now, and it's been great. I've worked at several different firms that have shaped me, and I've had several mentors along the way in my career. I have been on my own for about 3 years now, and it's just been amazing. God has blessed me for sure. My passion is father's rights. I'm a family law attorney, so I represent moms, I represent dads, I represent reasonable moms. I like to tell people that ma'am, are you reasonable? Okay. And then I represent dads of any kind. And I love to give my dads education, right? Because we find, and when I say we, practicing attorneys in family law specifically, we find that dads, they just don't know their rights. They have no clue, right?
Yeah.
I just hosted a Father's Day event I think 2 weekends ago, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
great turnout. And the first question I asked was, "Do you know what legitimation is?" Right? And most dads say, "Yeah, sure. I signed the birth certificate at the hospital."
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, in Georgia, that birth certificate you could throw it in the trash. I mean, keep it, right? You want records of your child, but it means nothing for a father.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when dads hear that, they are very disheartened by that. You do have to go through a legal process to get rights, and so that's really where my passion lies, and I'm here to talk about it today.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's not like that everywhere. I don't think so.
No, it's not.
But Georgia, I've been living in Georgia for almost 8 years now, and that's one of the things because I'm from Detroit, so
Yeah.
I think it's a little different in Detroit. But I
Mhm.
never had any kids in Detroit, so it's probably some laws that I don't know about that goes on in Michigan that I wouldn't have any idea. But so we're going to focus primarily on Georgia law
Yeah.
in the states in the laws that are in Georgia. But I mean, a lot of this information can be applied no matter where you are because a
Right.
lot of times it's not even about the law that stops a lot of fathers or stops a
Mhm.
lot of people in general. It's more
Mhm.
so people being scared of
Yes.
going to court, sitting in front of a judge. They think they're going to be railroaded, right? And we see it
Mhm.
every day. It's a headline
The
about somebody
financial
being.
responsibility that comes with
Yes.
that. Yeah.
It's there's a headline every day about somebody being railroaded in jail, not knowing their rights
Mhm.
and all of this. So um give us just a brief background on how you got started, what made you want to go into family law, and
Yeah.
have you always wanted to be a lawyer
Yeah,
since you
yeah,
were like
yeah.
young?
Absolutely. So, actually, I used to want to be a veterinarian when I was very young.
Okay.
And then I found out I only like dogs. And I was like, well, I don't know how well that will work out. So, long story short, I ended up going to college undecided. And it just so happened that a lot of my professors were attorneys. And I was like, this is interesting. Right. And so they took me under their wing and they let me know that my personality would be great for the profession. They gave me all the pros and all the cons. And it's something that I took up and I studied. And it's been really 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 great. And I now am again passionate about giving that knowledge to dads, and a lot of times I give it out for free,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's how valuable. That's how I guess God has placed it on my heart. Because I have seen such a crux with dads,
Yeah.
especially in the state of Georgia. It's the only state that I am licensed to practice in. And so when I witnessed the disadvantage and the disenfranchisement of fathers here, I said, so we gotta
Did
turn this
you have a
around.
situation like growing up that sparked that interest in fighting for fathers and making sure they know their rights, or was it just something that once you got into the field you realized the imbalance and then you gravitated towards that? Is
Yeah,
there
that's a
anything
really
like
good
personal?
question. Yeah. So it was definitely when I got into the practice, but then it for me was a full circle moment because I actually met my biological father for the first time in February of 2024.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he served time in the state of New York for doing some crimes and things like that. And so I think the mix of those, placed that passion on my heart to just really advocate for dads because a lot of men, especially in the state of Georgia, they're just at a disadvantage, and I think the reason why is because they don't have that information, they don't have that knowledge, and so once you have the information and the knowledge and the education, it's then your job to do what you will with that, right? And so that's what I find most of the time is that dads, they just have no clue. And I like to give the clues.
Now, what are some things that dads should look out? They're in love with this woman, they have a child, or they meet a woman, at the bar, and they
Oopsie
just so
daisy.
happen to have a child,
Yeah.
and they want to step up and be a father. They might have some issues going on with the child's mom. What are some things or what are some clues or whatever that you can give to fathers that you think will help them out in their custody battle in order to be that great father that they want to be?
Yeah.
But a lot of times being a great father, and I hate how it works, because sometimes being a good father,
Yeah.
people don't realize you can be a great father and a bad boyfriend, right? So you can be like,
Yeah.
you cheating and doing all this, or you creeping around,
That's separate.
but you still like want to be in your child's life. But a
Right.
lot of times people grow up without a father
Mm-hmm.
because the relationship ended. So like, what would you say? What's some advice you would give to fathers?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's a really, really, really good question. So in the state of Georgia, right, there are two ways that dads can have their rights vested. Way number one, which in my opinion places the child at a better advantage, is when parents actually have a child in wedlock, right? That means we are married, we tied the knot, we got
yes,
our legal paperwork, and now we want to start a family, we want to have a baby, right? Dads automatically have their legal rights vested when they're a husband.
okay,
But there are a lot of dads who don't take that route, but they still want to be, like you said, active in their child's life, and the child still needs their father.
yes,
So in that case, the dad has to petition the court. Here in Georgia, we call it a petition for legitimation. Um, and essentially, it's just a fancy phrase for a lawsuit. You have to file a lawsuit. Most of the time, what we see is that the opposing party, which is the mom, is not in agreement with legitimation, and that's where that I question moms. I say, well, why not? Like, don't you want the best for your child? For instance, right? If a child is born outside of wedlock and the dad wants to petition for legitimation, and moms make it very difficult for that to take place. Well, moms need to understand that if anything were to happen to the mother, God forbid the mother gets into a tragic car accident and she passes away, and the dad is not legitimated, that child becomes an orphan, a ward of the state, right? And so who wants that for their child? And so I think, like you said, with the relationship aspect, parents have to put that to the side and really think about the child. And that we find, and I say we, practicing attorneys, myself, I find that people have a grave difficulty doing that. They have grave difficulty setting aside the relationship versus how we're going to parent the
yes,
child. You don't want your child to grow up in trauma without another parent.
yeah.
And fathers are crucial to families. They're the head.
So with the legitimization,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just as easy as just like, hey, filing some paperwork. You actually have to file like a lawsuit and say, hey, I am the father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I didn't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So you file that petition, and then you have to serve the mother, right? You have to serve her. And a lot of times, what I find, and it's very heartbreaking, is that dads will call me when it's too late, right? And what do I mean by too late? The mom, she's taking the child to New York. She's taking the child to Detroit. She's in LA living her best life, right? And so then,
Unfortunately,
Georgia loses jurisdiction over that child. So now what do? You have to find a lawyer that's not in your home state to help you. So what I always advise to all dads who have children outside of wedlock, soon as that baby is born and you're signing that birth certificate, go ahead and fill out your petition for legitimation, right? Because it's protection, and especially when the parents are on the same page.
So if you fill the petition for legitimization the minute the child is born, that is a lot. You can do that, but if you wait, then you have to file a lawsuit.
Well, it's a lawsuit from the inception, but a lot of
Okay.
times, what I find is when people call me or some of my friends who practice family law, it's a lot of times it's so highly contested because that waiting period was there. Like you said, the arguments, the cheating, the this, that, and the third, as opposed to, hopefully, prayerfully, when the baby is born, the parents are in a better place.
Yes.
And so then it's more a round table conversation. And hey, we want to do what's best for our child. Let's go ahead and get this paperwork out of the way.
Yeah.
Dad is safe and the child is safe.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times dads only do it out of desperation, and it causes so much turmoil, especially to the child.
Yes.
So yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's I never knew that.
Yeah,
I think it can definitely be hard on fathers because at the end of the day, you just want to be there for your
I know,
child.
I know.
And, from the mom standpoint, she just went through this traumatic experience of even being pregnant for nine
Right.
months, having the
Giving
baby, and,
birth. Yep.
giving birth. And women, y'all feel like this is my baby. You know what I'm saying? This is my.
Mhm.
So now you got like
Mhm.
a tug and pull. And
Yeah.
then I feel like that leads to the whole child support conversation
Mhm.
and everyone beefing because of that. So
Yeah.
what would you say to fathers who are going through they probably got past the legitimization part,
Mhm.
but now they have to get past because that don't necessarily does that give you 50-50 custody? Like how does that work?
No,
Like
it doesn't. So in Georgia, joint physical custody is kind of really not a thing, right? We'll see some judges do it every now and again, and it kind of depends on um, the proximity of the parents, right?
yeah,
So do the parents live 1 mile from each other? Normally they don't, right? Normally
yeah,
somebody's in Fulton County, somebody's in Cobb County.
right.
So joint physical custody is normally not a thing. Now, joint legal custody, most judges grant that, and so what that means is that dad and mom have the right to say, make decisions over their child when it comes to educational decisions, medical decisions, what
Mm-hmm.
sports they want to play, the religion they want to practice, right? That's typically a no brainer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the physical part, where the child is being housed the majority of the time, the address that is attached to the child, normally one parent takes precedent to have primary physical custody. So it does not give dads, that automatic 50-50. And I know a lot of dads want that.
Right.
We see that. But, the way I try and educate and speak to dads in general, and especially my clients, is that you want what's best for your child, because at the end of the day, 30 years later, that child's going to be taking care of you. Right.
Yes.
And you want them to have the best mental health. You want them to be in the best space. And so sometimes it's not in the child's best interest to live in Cobb County for a week and then in Fulton County for the next week. Right.
Right.
And so, again, that goes back to social and emotional decisions that we make before we even create a child. Like, what environment do you want for your child? What do you want to be best practice for your child? So.
Thank you guys for watching. I want to make a deal with you. On my end, I'm going to produce high quality, informative content for you to enjoy and learn from. And on your end, you're going to subscribe down below to the podcast. Now we have a 50-50 deal to build this independent media company together. And if you want to invest with us and ensure our success, subscribe down to the YouTube membership. It really, really helps us hire journalists, hire videographers, and do the investigative journalism and independent journalism that you love and that you learn from.